Kia ora, here mai. I'm excited to share this presentation with you as part of my preparation for the Master Sommelier exam. Whether you're studying for your own wine journey, a curious enthusiast, or just here to explore, I hope you'll find value in what we cover today. In this video, we'll be exploring Aotearoa, New Zealand, uncovering the unique characteristics and stories behind its wines. Before we dive in, I want to highlight the trusted sources I used to create this presentation, some of my absolute favorite wine books. If you're researching or expanding your wine knowledge, these are great resources to have on your shelf. Now let's get started and uncork the secrets of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud, was first settled by the Maori people sometime between the late 13th and early 14th centuries. The name itself, Aotearoa, evokes what they saw upon arrival, a long band of white cloud that lingered above the snow-covered peaks of the South Island. For centuries, the islands remained isolated, shaped only by the rhythms of nature and Maori culture, until European sails appeared on the horizon. The first were the Dutch under Abel Tasman in 1642. More than a century later, in 1769, Captain James Cook mapped the coastline, the same Cook whose voyages would ultimately lead him to his death in Hawaii. The name New Zealand is an English rendering of the Dutch New Zealand after the province of Zeeland in Holland. And while Kiwi has become the affectionate term for New Zealanders, it honors not the fruit, but a small flightless native bird, a symbol of resilience, humility, and a strong sense of pride that still defines the country today. The first vines took root in 1819 at Katikati in the far north, planted by missionary Samuel Marsden, though the results, as he later admitted, were fit more for goats than for goblets. New Zealand's first recorded wines followed in 1833, made by James Busby in Waitangi. But true viticulture was slow to take hold. Most early settlers were Englishmen, unfamiliar with the craft of winemaking and more inclined towards beer and spirits. By the late 19th century, the rise of the temperance movement cast a long shadow over the fledgling industry. For decades, restrictive laws stifled both production and consumption, a legacy so enduring that supermarkets weren't even allowed to sell wine until 1989. For most of its history, New Zealand was a nation of beer drinkers. In the 1950s, the average Kiwi consumed about half a gallon of wine per year, compared to 26 gallons of beer. But everything changed with Sauvignon Blanc. The first commercial plantings appeared in 1973, when Montana, now Brancott Estate, began experimenting in Marlborough. Then in the 1980s, David Honan of Cloudy Bay released a Sauvignon Blanc that captured the world's attention and redefined what the variety could be. Like much of the wine world, New Zealand endured a government-sponsored vine pull scheme in 1986, a moment of reckoning that hastened the transition from high-yielding Mueller-Thurgau to expressive Sauvignon Blanc. From there, progress was rapid. In 1998, Tohu Wines became the first Maori-owned winery, though even today only about 1% of wineries are Maori-owned or operated. Many growers still rely on contract winemaking or shared facilities. A severe grape surplus in 2008 tested small producers. This was particularly detrimental given that approximately 88% of wineries are classified as small, producing fewer than 22,000 cases annually. In contrast, around 20 large producers dominate the export market and are responsible for nearly 90% of the nation's total wine output. Situated at the western base of the Polynesian Triangle, anchored by Hawaii to the north and Rapa Nui to the east, Aotearoa, New Zealand stretches like a long, slender arc across the South Pacific. The two main islands together span nearly 900 miles, a landmass larger than England, yet narrow enough that no vineyard is ever far from the sea. The capital, Wellington, sits at the southern tip of the North Island, beginning at the 35th parallel south, roughly aligned with Curicó in Chile, Buenos Aires in Argentina, Cape Town, and Adelaide. The South Island reaches down to the 45th parallel, where Central Otago shares latitude with Chubut in Patagonia. Most vineyards cluster along the eastern flanks of both islands, sheltered from the fierce westerlies by the Katiri-Tiri-o-Te-Moana, the Southern Alps. Here, fertile alluvial soils mix gravel, stone, silt, and sand in countless combinations, while grey-whack, a hard, ancient sandstone from the Paleozoic era, forms the geological backbone of much of the South Island. Aotearoa, New Zealand's vineyards thrive under a distinctly maritime influence framed by the Tasman Sea to the west and the vast Pacific Ocean to the east. On the South Island, Katiri-Tiri-o-Te-Moana moderates the climate and casts a protective rain shadow, giving rise to some of the driest viticultural zones in the country. Alexandra in Central Otago rivals Colmar in Alsace for aridity, a remarkable contrast within such a maritime nation. Yet, the same climate that brings balance also brings challenge. Excess rainfall can jeopardize ripening, especially when paired with the chill of southern winds. Despite often not receiving as much attention by critics, vintage variation here is far from subtle. It is one of the defining hallmarks of Aotearoa New Zealand wine. Unsurprisingly, white varieties dominate the landscape, accounting for nearly 80% of all plantings across Aotearoa New Zealand. At the forefront stands Sauvignon Blanc, commanding more than 70% of the nation's vineyard area and contributing over 85% of total exports, a single grape that has become synonymous with the country's global identity. Pinot Noir follows as a distant second, representing about 7% of total production, while all other varieties fall well below that figure. Aotearoa New Zealand's vineyards face a unique challenge. Its proximity to the annual ozone hole over the South Pole exposes vines to UV radiation roughly 40% more intense than at equivalent northern latitudes. To meet this challenge, canopy management, introduced in 1980 by Dr. Richard Smart, became essential, shielding grapes from harsh afternoon sun while promoting airflow to reduce the risk of rot. Vines are planted on phylloxera-resistant rootstocks with vertical shoot positioning as the dominant training system, though cordon and spur pruning are more common for red Bordeaux varietals. On par with Maure principles, sustainability is central to viticulture here. Over 95% of wineries are certified by Sustainable Wine Growing New Zealand, and nearly a third of vineyard land is government-owned and protected from development. Overall, the vines are healthy and productive, yet powdery mildew remains a primary threat to both quality and yield. A brief note on pyrazines, the compounds that give many Aotearoa New Zealand wines their distinctive aromatic character. Methoxypyrazines are secondary products of amino acid metabolism, and 3 types have been identified in grapes. The most abundant, IBMP, isobutyl methoxypyrazine, is responsible for the classic green bell pepper notes. IPMP, isopropyl methoxypyrazines, contribute to earthy, asparagus-like aromas, while the least abundant SBMP, sec-butyl methoxypyrazine, adds subtle vegetal and peas characteristics. During early berry development, grapes accumulate methoxypyrazines while maintaining high acidity, a natural defense that makes the fruit less appealing to animals and protects immature seeds. After veraison, these compounds gradually degrade as sugars rise, transforming the grapes into ripe, flavorful fruit attractive for seed dispersal. Understanding this process is key to grasping how Aotearoa New Zealand's Sauvignon Blanc and other varieties achieve their signature herbaceous yet vibrant profile. When it comes to winemaking, Aotearoa New Zealand imposes few restrictions, allowing both innovation and expression to flourish. The country has become a global leader in stealth enclosures, with over 90% of national production sealed this way. In Sauvignon Blanc, roughly 95% of vineyards are machine harvested, and fermentation typically occurs at cool temperatures in stainless steel using cultured yeasts. Most producers avoid malolactic fermentation and skin contact, bottling and releasing the wine quickly to showcase freshness. Yet, there is room for nuance and tradition. Some winemakers opt for hand harvesting, whole bunch pressing, spontaneous fermentation in barrels, and extended lees contact. Chardonnay is often treated more traditionally, hand-harvested, fermented in barrels with a high proportion of new oak, and allowed to undergo full malolactic fermentation. Despite this, the wines rarely take on a heavy buttery character, with maturation typically carried out in larger 500-liter puncheons, preserving freshness and textural elegance. Pinot Gris in Aotearoa New Zealand is typically high-yielding and fermented at cool temperatures in stainless steel using cultured yeasts, emphasizing purity and freshness. Pinot Noir often receives careful cap management by hand in open-top fermenters, though large producers may use mechanical punch-downs with maturation carried out in 225 liters PSs. Red Bordeaux varieties and Syrah are commonly vinified with pump-over and rack-and-return techniques and matured in 228-liter barriques, with some of the finest Cabernet Sauvignon-based wines spending around 18 months in French oak barrels. Beyond tradition, a number of innovative producers are experimenting with amphora and concrete eggs for fermentation or maturation, adding textural complexity and subtle variation to their wines. In November of 2016, Aotearoa New Zealand's Parliament passed the Geographic Indications Wine and Spirits Registration Amendment Bill, formally recognizing 22 geographical indications including the countries as a whole, the North Island, and the South Island. 2 years later, Tuku, the Maori Winemakers Collective, was established to bring Maori-owned wineries together under shared cultural principles. The collective's philosophy emphasizes kaitiakitanga, or guardianship of the land and people with a focus on sustainability and stewardship for the future generations; whakapapa, the connection to heritage and ancestral identity; whanaungatanga, a spirit of family and collaboration among members; and manaakitanga, the practice of hospitality and generosity expressed through the sharing of wine, stories, and culture. At the northernmost tip of Aotearoa, New Zealand, lies Northland, or Te Tai Tokerau in Maori, meaning the northern coast. It is the birthplace of Aotearoa, New Zealand's viticulture, centered in Kerikeri, and benefits from a subtropical climate that is warm, humid, and sunny. Vineyards are primarily clustered along the coast near Whangarei, the Bay of Islands, and Kaitaia, thriving on volcanic soils. There are no official sub-GIs here, so wines are labeled simply with the regional name. The principal grape varieties include Chardonnay, Syrah, Pinot Gris, and Merlot, while leading producers are The Landing, known for high-quality boutique wines, and Marsden Estate, which produces the largest volumes and also serves as a local contractor for other growers. The Auckland GI, also known as Tāmaki Makaurau, or Isthmus of a Thousand Lovers in Maori, encompasses Aotearoa, New Zealand's largest city and faces ongoing pressure from urban expansion. Historically, Dalmatian immigrants in Auckland produced inexpensive, often low-quality wines, giving rise to the term plonk, originally used by British settlers pejoratively. Dali plonk specifically refers to this early chapter in Aotearoa, New Zealand's winemaking. Today, a strong Croatian presence remains in winery ownership. Auckland contains 3 official sub-GIs, Matakana, Kumeu, and Waiheke Island, which produce primarily Chardonnay, Syrah, and Bordeaux varieties in a rainy subtropical climate. Notable producers include Kumeu River, owned by the Brachkovich family, and Stony Ridge on Waiheke Island, celebrated for its La Rose Bordeaux blend. Gisborne GI, or Tairafiti Maori, meaning the coast of the rising sun, is aptly named, as Gisborne is the first city in the world to greet the sunrise and the most easterly wine region globally. The region enjoys a warm, temperate maritime climate and contains no official sub-GI. Gisborne is known for bulk wine production and kiwi fruit cultivation, with Chardonnay and Pinot Gris as its principal grape varieties. Vineyards here must contend with occasional cyclones and the risk of botrytis, yet producers like Milton Vineyards have gained acclaim, particularly for their Clos de Sainte-Anne Chardonnay, which has earned numerous awards. Hawke's Bay, or Te Matawa Maui, Maui's fishhook, is New Zealand's second largest wine region, benefiting from a temperate maritime climate and natural shelter provided by the Ruahine and Kaueka ranges. Vineyards were first established in 1851 by French missionaries, founding Mission Estate, the country's oldest winery. The region gained prominence with Tom MacDonald's pioneering Cabernet Sauvignon in 1949. Central Hawke's Bay is the region's sole official sub-GI, while the Gimblett Gravels, though not officially a GI, is Aotearoa, New Zealand's only trademarked wine zone, famed for its poor gravelly soils, though clay and other soil types are present. The finest vineyard sites are well drained and low in fertility, producing wines of remarkable concentration, yet the region contends with fall rains, summer cyclones, and fungal disease. Merlot dominates red plantings, with Syrah representing roughly 75% of the nation's total Syrah production, and Chardonnay leading the whites. In Central Hawke's Bay, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Gris are more prevalent. Notable producers include Te Mata at the base of the eponymous mountain range, Osawa Wines, acclaimed for world-class sparkling wines, and Craggy Range, renowned for its flagship Bordeaux-style blend, Sophia. Wairarapa, whose name in Maori means glistening waters, enjoys a dry, cool climate with gravel and clay soils. The region contains 2 registered sub-GIs, Gladstone and Martinborough, producing predominantly Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc, alongside Chardonnay and Pinot Gris. Prominent producers include Atarangi, Schubert, and Dry River, each contributing to the region's reputation for elegant, expressive wines. Nelson, or Whakatu in Maori, covers an area roughly equivalent to Wairarapa and enjoys a climate moderated by the Tasman Bay to the north. This gives the region a more temperate and wetter climate than Marlborough, with mild winters and warm summers. Soils are predominantly gravel and clay, supporting Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Riesling, and Pinot Gris. The primary viticultural challenge is rain during harvest, which can impact quality. Within Nelson, the most notable areas are Motere Hills and Waimea Plains, although there are no official sub-GIs. The region is home to numerous small producers include Brightwater Vineyards and Neudorf Vineyards, both recognized for their high-quality, expressive wines. Arguably Aotearoa, New Zealand's most famous GI, Marlborough was the site of the first Polynesian arrival over 700 years ago and is known in Maori as Te Tauihu o Te Waka Maui, meaning the prow of Maui's canoe. The region saw the first commercial production of Sauvignon Blanc in 1973 by Montana, now Brancott Estate, and today Marlborough is the largest GI in Aotearoa, New Zealand, accounting for nearly 75% of the total vineyard area and national production. The climate is sunny and dry, with significant diurnal shifts, and the soils are predominantly alluvial and clay, including grey whack, the distinctive grey river stones found throughout the Wairau and Aotearoa valleys, which give the regions its defining landscape. A third informal sub-region, the Southern Valleys, lie between the Wairau Valley to the north and Aotearoa Valley to the south, though no official sub-GI exist. Sauvignon Blanc is primarily planted on the valley floors of Marlborough, while Pinot Noir and Chardonnay thrive on the hillsides of the Southern Valleys. The coastal Lower Wairau produces the most thiol-rich expressions of Sauvignon Blanc, whereas the Aotearoa Valley's cooler, drier climate imparts distinctive citrus and crushed herb notes. Marlborough is also home to the appellation Marlborough Wine, AMW, a trademark ensuring that wines meet strict quality and provenance standards. To qualify, wines must be 100% Marlborough fruit and bottled in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Water availability is an emerging challenge, representing one of the region's greatest threats to production. Notable producers include Bird Wines, a Maori-owned member of the Tuku Collective also producing Manu, Te Pa, another Tuku and AMW certified winery producing Koha, and larger certified producers such as Greywacke, Cloudy Bay, Astrolabe, and Dogpoint. Canterbury, originally known in Maori as Waitaha after the first Iwi to settle the region, contains two registered sub-GIs, North Canterbury and Waipura Valley. The soils, composed of clay and limestone, provide excellent conditions for Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, and Pinot Gris, the region's most widely planted varieties. The primary viticultural hazards are spring and fall frosts, and notable producers including Pyramid Valley in North Canterbury and Waipura Hills and Sherwood in Waipura Valley. Waitaki, whose name in Maori means weeping waters, is Aotearoa, New Zealand's coldest wine region with limestone-rich soils ideally suited to Pinot Noir, the dominant varietal. The region has no official sub-GIs, and its most notable producers are Close Ostler and Valley Wines. Finally, we arrive at Central Otago, characterized by a continental climate heavily influenced by the Southern Alps. Summers here are short, sunny, and dry, with the greatest diurnal temperature shifts in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Bannockburn is the region's sole GI and most recently registered in 2022. Other notable areas include Gibbston, Bendigo, and Cromwell, where soils formed from glacial terraces of weathered schist and loess provide excellent conditions for viticulture. The first Pinot Noir vines were planted in 1987 by Alan Brady for Gibbston Valley Wines. Major producers include Drumsara, a small family-owned winery on glacial gravels in Alexandra, Taras Vineyards, a Tuku Collective winery established in 2002 by Hayden Johnston and managed organically in Bendigo, and Felton Road, founded in 2000 by Nigel Greening, a former London advertising executive, with vineyards farmed organically and biodynamically from inception. Sauvignon Blanc from Aotearoa, New Zealand presents a semi-aromatic to fully aromatic white wine, naturally high in acid, with a pungent herbal and vegetal character. Visually, it shows a pale straw color with green and silver highlights, medium viscosity, and sometimes a hint of bubbles. On the nose and palate, it offers ripe, tart fruit, grapefruit, lemon, lime, tangerine, orange, gooseberry, kiwi, mango, passion fruit, and green apple, alongside floral and non-fruit notes such as fruit blossoms, white flowers, lemongrass, tarragon, cilantro, bell pepper, jalapeno, asparagus, green beans, grass, and seeds, with subtle, stony minerality and no oak influence. Structurally, it is dry with medium to high alcohol, medium to medium plus body, high acidity, no phenolic bitterness, a medium to long finish, and a moderate to complex overall expression. Comparative laterals include Riesling, Loire Valley Sauvignon Blanc, and Grunewald Liner. Pinot Noir is a thin-skinned red grape known for elevated acidity, restrained tannins, moderate alcohol, and pronounced herbal nuances. In Central Otago, it typically displays dark garnet to light ruby hues with pink and garnet reflections, lightly staining the glass, and medium to high viscosity. On the nose and palate, the fruit ranges from ripe to jammy and candied, with notes of red cherry, raspberry, strawberry, pomegranate, black cherry, black plum, and blueberry. Complementary floral and herbal elements include red and purple flowers, lavender, herbal tea, green herbs, and tomato leaf, alongside non-fruit layers of beet, licorice, cola, and sassafras. Subtle organic earth notes, composed forest floor, and mushroom are framed by new French oak, contributing aromas of vanilla, baking spices, caramel, coffee, and smoke. Structurally, it is dry with medium plus alcohol, medium to medium plus body, medium plus to high acidity, medium minus to medium plus tannins, a medium plus to long finish, and moderate to complex overall expression. Comparable laterals include Burgundy, Grenache, and Gamay. Aotearoa, New Zealand's recent vintages have produced some remarkable highs and a few difficult lows. The 2024 vintage is already being held as the best vintage in living memory, small in yield but exceptional in quality. Similarly, 2021 delivered outstanding wines despite early season stresses and reduced yields, a true case of quality over quantity. And 2019 stands out as a banner year across the country, defined by warm and dry conditions with minimal disease pressure. In contrast, 2023 brought severe La Niña weather with heavy rains and storms that challenged the North Island in particular. The 2022 season continued the wet trend marked by disease pressure and uneven ripening, while 2018 was a roller coaster of extremes, early heat followed by mid-season cyclones, testing growers' skills and resilience across the regions. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever visited Aotearoa, New Zealand? What's your favorite wine or producer from here? Let's keep this conversation flowing. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and experiences are. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you found this helpful, entertaining, or inspiring, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel or following me on Instagram. I'm aiming to share a new presentation every week, so stay tuned for more wine adventures. Until then, kia ora, ka kite anō.